Let me begin my comments by thanking both of you for your efforts. I will tell you that when this committee first started becoming aware of this scam 2 years ago, we naturally contacted the Social Security Administration, the IG's office, and frankly, we had a very difficult time getting them to pay attention and realize how important it was for the agency to be front and center in communicating with beneficiaries about this scam. That has completely changed since the two of you took your positions last year. So usually I start my questioning by chastising the witnesses. In this case, I'm going to start them by thanking both of you, because you are the ones who have the access to the people who are most likely to be the victims and the means to meet them, such as through your messages to those who have online Social Security accounts, the public service messages, and the enforcement work, which I think is so important. So I want to talk a little bit about the role of these gateway telecommunications companies, because in reading about the complaints that were filed just yesterday, I learned that the companies that have been charged had helped to funnel some 700 million calls through that were scam calls. That is absolutely outrageous, and they are making money from these fraudsters. So, Mr. Saul, you talked about the tremendous outreach that you're doing, and Inspector General Ennis, you talked about working on this particular case. I'd like each of you to comment on what is the reaction of the telecommunication companies when you go to them and ask them to know their customers, to crack down, and to help solve this problem. Commissioner, we'll start with you.
Well, I think that really the Inspector General has much more knowledge about this particular part of the function. As far as I'm concerned, I think that that's a piece of the whole problem. I think the real essence, and my job as commissioner, is to be sure that our beneficiaries, our customers, are aware what a serious problem this is. So what I'm trying to do in focusing the assets of our administration is on the public outreach. I mean, we're coming up with new things actually every week to improve the outreach that we have. We're not where we want to be yet, but we have come in the last 5 or 6 months a long, long way. I think that we were not doing the job, as I said in my statement. This really snuck up on us. This has become a massive problem, as we all know, and it's a very serious thing. I can't imagine an elderly person or somebody getting these calls, depending on Social Security just to buy their groceries, and they're getting threatened that, well, if they don't respond, they're not going to be getting a payment in the future. So
Exactly.
We've got a really big mess here. I mean, and it's not going to go away quickly. I mean, I think that everything we can do, and I said this to AARP when I went over there for an interview, I said, whatever help you can give us, this is great. They've got 38 million members. We spent the afternoon recording a whole message, of which a lot of it was dedicated to the fraud. These are things I think that in the end will make a really big difference. So
I agree.
You know, as far as the carriers go, I would leave that to the Inspector General.
Absolutely.
But the outreach is what I'm focusing on, Senator.
Inspector General Ennis, what has been the reaction of the telecom carriers?
The major telecom carriers have been very helpful with both us and other agencies. One of the major efforts is they help us with the do not originate calls. So if we can provide numbers that we know are coming, the spoofing numbers, for example, where they're spoofing Social Security numbers, if we get information to those telecoms and working with the major carriers, they can prevent up to 99% of those calls getting through. And so they've been a big help. There are pockets of rural areas and other areas that aren't covered by the major telecom carriers, and there are hundreds of smaller companies, and the agency has taken over the do not originate effort in contacting and reaching out to those other telecom carriers. They have sometimes more success than others. Some of the small companies don't have the technology to help us with blocking. Some of them don't want to help, but for the major carriers, as I said, we're up to 98 to 99% blocking, and they've been very instrumental in that. The problem is with the gateway carriers, which frankly can operate it out of your garage. They don't need a lot of infrastructure. They don't need a lot of people. You can set up a few servers in your garage and be up and running and help transmit millions and millions and millions of calls introduce those calls from foreign call centers into the United States telecom system, and then they get routed around through various telecom companies. And so they, of course, we don't work with them. We are working against them at this point in time, and had some success yesterday, but they are the crux of the problem right now.
Thank you. I think that's very helpful for us to know. One bill that I've introduced would double the penalties for people who are spoofing calls, and I think that would be helpful as well.
Yes.